All right, the next method of solving quadratic equations that we're going to do is called taking the square root. So in order to do taking the square root, what's going to happen is, so when we have a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, this b term, this term right here, will be missing. Okay, and that is going to be the easiest way to solve an equation when you're missing your b value. So let's take a look at example 1. Okay, so this one has two terms. Okay, so you have your 4x squared and you have your c. That's your a and that's your c. Okay, so I'm missing that b value. So in order to solve these, you do not have to make these equal to 0. Okay, so I'm just going to make a note here. These do not have to equal 0. My board's a little off. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on a problem like this, I just want to get x by itself. Okay, well, to get the x squared by itself, I can divide both sides by 4. When I do that, I get x squared equals 3. To undo a square, you take the square root of both sides. So if I do the square root and the square root, okay, I'll get x equals. Now, when you take a square root, it can be positive or negative. Okay, so this will be a positive or a negative square root 3. You can leave your answer like this, or if you write x equals square root 3 and x equals negative square root 3, those are the same things. Okay, so those are your two answers for this problem. Okay, so let's take a look at example 2. All right, this time, if you multiplied everything out, the x minus 3 squared, you would get a value that does have a b. Okay, but because it's factored for you, it's written in factored form. So we have a factored perfect square trinomial. I can solve by taking the square root. Okay, so I'm just going to rewrite this so that I can take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and just start there. When I take the square root of something squared, whatever's under it just drops down. So x minus 3 just drops out. Okay, it equals positive or negative square root 7. Now, I don't know what the square root of 7 is, so I can leave it like that. Okay, now, I do not want to leave my answer like this. Okay, what you've got to do is get x by itself. So I need to add the 3 to the other side. Okay, but before I do that, I'll go ahead and do it. Okay, that'll give me x equals 3, that's a positive 3, plus or minus square root 7. Now, you can leave your answer like that, or you can split it up like we did the first one, and write 3 plus the square root of 7, and x equals 3 minus the square root of 7. Those mean the same thing. Okay, you can leave it 3 plus or minus square root of 7, or you can split it apart into two answers. So that would be your answer for example 2. Okay, so let's look at example 3. All right, this time I have the perfect square trinomials on both sides. Okay, so I can, again, go ahead and just take the square root of both sides. Okay, so if I do that and take the square root here and take the square root here, all that happens is the x minus 7 drops out, and all that happens here is the x plus 3 drops out. Okay? All right, so now I want to solve this equation. So I'm going to start by subtracting x from both sides. Okay, x minus x, that goes away. Negative 7 equals x minus x, that also goes away. Bring down your 3. Now, negative 3 does not equal negative 7. Okay? So therefore, since these do not equal, this is a no solution problem. So that's all you can do with that one. All right? So now, for example 4, I've got 3 terms as well, but notice, so I normally have something like this, okay? Notice, I do not have this, I don't have a b value. I don't have anything with just an x, okay? So that means that I want to get x squared by itself. So I want to get x squared by itself. Okay, so first off, to start and get x squared by itself, I can add 10 to both sides, and that'll go away. That gives me 8x squared equals 224. Okay, then I'm going to divide both sides by 8. So divide by 8, divide by 8. X squared will equal 28. Okay, and then the final step to get x squared by itself, okay, you need to take the square root of both sides. Okay, so that'll be x equals plus or minus square root 28. Now, this is where some of the stuff from the first unit comes back in, because you can simplify the square root of 28. So I'm going to do that right here to the side. 28 can be simplified. I'm going to divide that by 2 and get 14. Divide that by 2 and get 7. Divide that by 7 and get 1. So therefore I have a pair of 2's. Okay, so this will simplify to plus or minus 2 square root 7. So the 2's come out, the 7 stays, and that will be your final answer. Okay. All right, so then if you'll look at these on the back, I'm going to try to go through these pretty quickly. So if you need to pause your video, please do so. All right, so in this first one, I want to get x squared by itself again. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. That's 2x squared equals negative 16. I'm going to divide by 2. All right, that gives me x squared equals negative 8. And then I want to take the square root of both sides. So we're not taking that square root until we get x squared by itself. So x equals positive and negative square root of a negative 8. Okay, 2 things here. First off, it's negative. If it is negative, remember my answer will have an I. Okay, but I also have 8 that I need to simplify. So I can divide by 2 and get 4. Divide by 2 and get 2. Divide by 2 and get 1. So here I have a pair of 2's. So this will become 2 square root 2. But because it's negative, so because of the negative sign, I've got to have an I. So I'm going to have positive or negative 2i square root 2. So I'll make myself a note right here. Because there is a negative under the radical, my answer will have and I. So just don't forget about some of the rules we talked about in the first unit. All right, so let's look at the next one. All right, first thing I'm going to do, I want this 4n squared by itself. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. That'll leave me negative 4n squared equals negative 24. Now I'm going to divide by negative 4. Those go away. N squared equals a positive 6. If you have negative 24 divided by negative 4, it'll be positive 6. Then I want to take square root of both sides. Okay, so I'll take the square root here. I'll get n equals positive, negative, square root 6. 6 cannot be simplified, therefore that is your final answer. Okay, so let's take a look at number 7. All right, on problems like this, you want to get whatever squared by itself. So just like the other ones where I wanted to get the x squared by itself, I want to get this whole thing right here by itself. I want to get this by itself. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get rid of the 9. So I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. That'll give me x minus 2 squared equals 16. Okay, and then now I want to take the square root of both sides. Okay, so square root. So all that does here is drop down the x minus 2. Okay, then square root of 16 is just 4. So I'm going to have a positive and a negative 4. So on a problem like this one, you are going to have to split up your problem. Okay, because I cannot spell split. Split the problem. And so what I mean by that is I'm going to take one of them, so x minus 2, set it equal to the positive 4. Take the other one, x minus 2, and set it equal to negative 4. So I'm splitting the problem when I have no radical left. Okay, so here I'm adding 2 to both sides, and x equals 6. Adding 2 to both sides here, and x equals negative 2. And these are your final answers to that problem. Okay, so let's take a look at the last example. So same sort of thing. I want the x minus 2 squared to get by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 17. Okay, so I'm bringing down the 4. And this 17's go away. 53 minus 17 is 36. Okay, now I have this number in the very front, the 4. I've got to divide both sides by 4 before I can do square root. So that those will go away. X minus 2 squared equals 9. Okay, so now I'm going to square root both sides. Square root. That makes the x minus 2 just drop out. Square root of 9 is just 3. So I have a plus and a minus 3. Okay, so this is another problem where we're going to have to split the problem to find the answers. So I'm going to have x minus 2 equals a positive 3, and x minus 2 equals a negative 3. Add 2 to both sides here. Those go away, and x will equal 5. Here, I'm going to add 2 to both sides, and that'll be x equals negative 1. And those will be your final answers here. Okay, so if you will take a look at some of your follow-up problems and start working on those.